Okay, I want you to imagine the worst headache you can possibly think of. But this isn't the kind that creeps up on you. No, this one hits like a bolt of lightning. Bam! Instant, explosive, and honestly, terrifying. That's a thunderclap headache. It's a real medical emergency, and for the longest time, it was this massive, baffling mystery. So today, we're going to follow the medical detectives who finally cracked the case and gave us the definitive guide to this really alarming symptom.
So, what's the big deal? What makes this headache so different? Well, the official definition is a severe headache that goes from 0 to its absolute screaming peak in, get this, less than 1 minute. Just think about that. That incredible speed is exactly what makes it so frightening. And it's why doctors treat it as a medical emergency, no questions asked.
So why is it so fast? Well, it all comes down to our body's internal wiring. You see, we basically have two types of pain signals. You got your slow C fibers, that's like a dull, throbbing ache that kind of builds up. But then you have the A delta fibers. These guys are the lightning strike. They're the nervous system's super fast alarm bell, firing off this instantaneous, sharp signal. A thunderclap headache, that's your A delta fibers literally screaming for help at the top of their lungs.
Right. But for the doctors who hear that alarm bell ringing, well, it was a huge puzzle. A patient comes into the emergency room with this symptom, and you're thinking, okay, what on earth could be causing this? And before this research we're talking about, the answers were, all over the place, super inconsistent. And this quote from the lead researcher, Dr. Emma Devaneny, just nails the problem. She basically said that if a doctor looked at 5 different medical textbooks or review articles, they'd probably get 5 different lists of what could be causing it. And that's not just messy, right? That's a real danger to patients. How can you treat something if you don't even have a complete list of what it could be?
So that's what they set out to do. They decided to answer this one seemingly simple question. What is the complete, final, evidence-based list of every single thing that has ever, in all of medical history, been documented to cause a thunderclap headache? Talk about an ambitious goal.
And that question kicked off what I can only describe as a massive medical detective hunt. The team launched a full-scale, systematic review, basically digging through decades and decades of published medical papers, looking for any and every clue. Okay, so their first search cast this huge net, and it pulled in over 21,000 potential articles. Just imagine that pile of paperwork. From that mountain of paper, they had to start filtering. They meticulously screened every title and abstract, narrowing it down to just over 1,200 that looked promising enough for a full deep dive review. And then came the really tough part. They applied their super strict criteria. The headache described had to be both sudden and severe. After all that work, they were left with a final, core evidence base of 213 articles. This was the gold mine. So, after digging through those 213 core papers, what did they find? Well, they were finally able to put together the definitive lineup of suspects, the complete list. And the final number was 119. Yeah, not a dozen, not 30, 119 separate documented medical conditions that could all show up looking like a thunderclap headache. That's just wild. And here's the really crucial part. Their detective work found 46 causes. That's more than a third of the entire list that had never been included in previous academic reviews. Think about that. These were basically hidden causes, now finally brought out into the light for everyone to see. And when you look at what these causes are, the diversity is just stunning. About a quarter of them are cerebrovascular, issues with the brain's blood vessels, which kind of makes sense. But then you have things like primary headaches, like a weird type of migraine. You've got infections, and then there's this huge 20% chunk labeled idiopathic. That's basically medical speak for we have no idea. The symptom is absolutely real, but the trigger, a complete mystery. And some of the suspects on this list were truly shocking. I mean, things you would never connect to a headache. A heart attack, yeah, that can present as a thunderclap headache. An aortic dissection, that's a tear in the main artery coming off your heart, that too. Even something as bizarre as pneumocephalus, which is literally air trapped inside your skull, could be the culprit. It just goes to show you that a symptom in your head can be a warning sign for a problem almost anywhere else in the body. But as the researchers kept digging into the data, they found something really profound. A plot twist, if you will. It turns out the story of the thunderclap headache wasn't just one story. It was 2 very different stories.
And that difference revealed a deep, fundamental bias in how medical knowledge itself is built.
And this, right here, is the heart of their discovery. It's like two completely different worlds. On one hand, you have case reports. These are the wild, dramatic stories that doctors publish about their most unusual, 1 in a million patients. They're full of rare, exciting conditions. But then you have the cohort studies. These studies just follow everybody who comes in with a symptom. And what do they find? In the real world, a staggering 75% of cases are actually from things like primary headaches, like a migraine, or doctors can't find any dangerous cause at all.
So this whole phenomenon actually has a name. It's called publication bias. Think about it. Medical journals are way more likely to publish a crazy story about a super rare 1 in a million diagnosis than they are to publish the 10,000 case of a thunderclap headache that just turned out to be a weird migraine. The rare, dramatic stuff is just sexier. Now, this doesn't mean the rare cases aren't real. They absolutely are. But it means they get all the attention, and that completely skews our perception of what's actually common versus what's incredibly rare.
So, at the end of the day, what does solving this case actually mean? It means finally having clarity where before there was just a ton of confusion. It means building a solid foundation for doctors to stand on where before there was, well, nothing. Okay, let's break down the key takeaways from this whole investigation. First, for the very first time, we have a definitive, evidence-based list of 119 causes. That's huge. But maybe even more important, we learned that what's common in the medical journals is not what's common in the waiting room. While every single thunderclap headache has to be taken seriously, the reality is that many of them turn out to be harmless. And I think ultimately, this whole thing reveals how our understanding of medicine can get a little distorted by the kind of stories we choose to tell.
And that leaves us with one last kind of provocative thought to chew on. This was a massive effort just to create a complete list for one single symptom. It really makes you wonder, right? What other medical facts, the kind of stuff doctors learn in school and use every single day, might also be incomplete, skewed by this exact same publication bias? What other mysteries are just sitting out there, waiting for their own great medical detective hunt to begin?